Hey everybody, and welcome to our YouTube Live featuring the amazing Paul Ruhter. Before we get into that today, I'm Matt, Senior Client Success Manager for White House Custom Color. And make sure if you have not hit the subscribe button on our YouTube page to definitely hit that. You're going to get notified of awesome events like we have today that are coming up. Make sure to follow along on Instagram at WHCC Pro. And then for all of the product details that you want to check out, go to WHCC.com. New website, tons of information, lots of detail, the card editor, the album designer, all the fun things are on there for you to check out. And make sure while we are discussing stuff with Paul today, if you have questions, put them into the chat. We have a magic whiteboard here in the room that the questions will magically appear on, and we'll get him to answer them for us while we're live and on the air. If you're watching this on the rewind, we can actually get in touch with Paul. We know where he lives. I have his cell number, and I'm sure that he would be more than happy to answer any questions that pop up after the fact. So without further ado, I would love to introduce Paul Ruhter. So I've had the opportunity and honor of getting to know you over the last several years, and lots of Zoom meetings,
yes,
lots of discussions, and it's finally come to fruition. You're here in person. You actually do exist.
I do exist. We picked these dates
really cool.
Probably a year ago for me to come here. So I put it on my calendar with a bunch of exclamation points.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of wait and wait and wait. And now it's February. Who doesn't want to come to Minnesota in February? So here we are.
Absolutely. You know, and it's a little different now, February, than last year, February.
I'm glad it was this year.
You know, you could barely see the building for all the snow, and this year we have no snow. So, but we're very, very excited to have you here and honored that you are taking time away from your business and life and everything to come and spend time with us. So, Paul Ruhter Photography is in Billings.
Yep.
Why don't we let you, the guy who knows the business best, tell us a little bit more about yourself, the business, all that kind of stuff to begin with.
So yeah, I suppose I was thinking about this the other day, that being a full-time photographer is the only job I've had as an adult. So, you know, I graduated from an art school and immediately went into journalism. So that was in 2002, so it's been 22 years.
Wow. So you started when you were 4?
Yeah. God gave me a baby face.
Right.
So, yeah. So I moved to Western PA, right? So we have a little bit of connection there. So I was outside of Pittsburgh and kind of did the journalism thing for, I think, about 13 years. And moved across the country for another newspaper, moved again for another newspaper to Billings. And, you know, at some point I kind of, you know, was done moving. I needed to stay put somewhere. And so, you know, I wanted my roots to be in Montana. I'm head over heels in love with Montana. So that's where I decided to stay. And then, you know, I got out of journalism, kind of survived there was a recession in 2008, 2010. Yep. Survived a lot of layoffs in the newspaper business. Right. So I finally left in 2015. Opened my studio pretty quick in 15. So in the grand scheme of things, my business isn't that old. Yeah. Right, 9 years isn't that long, but I don't know really what happened between 15 and now, but you know,
it's just a blur.
It's been a blur, and here I am sitting in front of you, and something good happened in that time frame. So
a few good things happened. Now, if I remember right, and we've had so many conversations, correct me if I'm wrong, but you did not like portrait photography. Am I correct?
We talked about that years ago.
You're like, I don't want to do this.
I didn't. And when I know when I started my business, there were a lot of things I had to learn how to do, right? I just kind of dove into it. Being a portrait photographer was one of them. Yep. I had to learn a lot on how to be a portrait photographer, and amongst other things, right? How to run a business and how to make it successful in the product world. Yes. I mean, I had no idea what I was doing. Right. So I, you know, was a member of White House right away. Yep. And, you know, the more you do it, the better you get. And now, you know, everything has kind of blossomed into what it is. But who would have thought? Yeah. I'm shooting portraits every day. So
I absolutely do not want to shoot portraits 9 years later.
Right.
That's awesome. So tell us about your location. You're in Billings. You have a commercial storefront. Employees, staff, like what?
No employees.
No,
It's just me.
I know the answer to this.
I know. A lot of people probably do. Yeah, it's. I have a studio downtown. It's the only studio I've been in since I opened. So, it was pretty much gutted when I went in there, and we built it from the ground up, and it's great. Love it. But yeah, it's just me and Ranger who comes to work with me every day.
Yep.
So yeah, there's some challenges being alone. There's some pros and cons. Of course, but I'm sure we'll talk about.
Yeah, we will. And just so everybody knows, like we've mentioned already, Paul and I have had a lot of chance to have really good discussions over the years. And one of the first times that we talked, you were telling me how you structured your business, and I was like, whoa, wait, we need to really look at this. But then after hearing how you did it, and we'll get into this, it really works for you. And it's a way that you solved a potential problem, or you wanted to alleviate having to bring on extra expense.
Right.
So.
And when you said, whoa, that first time that we talked, I kind of went, whoa, what am I doing wrong? Right? But the more we've talked over the years, the more you've kind of told me, hey, it's working. Why, don't listen to everybody else. Or, I said, if it's not broke, don't fix it once.
Yeah.
And so
Absolutely.
I haven't fixed it because it's working.
Yeah, totally. So let's dive into how the business is segmented first before we get into talking about your lighting and posing and all that kind of stuff. So you're primarily high school seniors and sports. You are a product-based business on both ends of the spectrum there. So how does that split up? Like, how much time do you devote to sports versus your seniors?
I think it's really split 50-50. And I think when I first started, it was 50-50, and they both just kind of grew together. And to this day, it's still kind of split 50-50, but it has maxed out. Yeah. For me being by myself, I do X amount of seniors per year. I kind of hit that number every year. And when it comes to sports, there's only so many sports teams you can do in a certain sports season. So I've kind of maxed myself out there. Yeah. So they both grew to the point where I'm full. I'm maxed out. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And how far ahead of time are you booking out? Like, if you know that you're only going to do X amount of seniors and you're very sought after in your area, obviously, do people book ahead a long time to make sure and get you?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, once in a while I get a phone call from a parent and they say, "Is it too early to book senior photos? I've been following you for a couple of years. I want my kid to come to you." And I'll say, "Sure, is your kid, graduating in 25?" And they'll say, no, he's not graduating until 26. And I'm like, oh, okay. It might be a little early, but typically, like right now, for my summer and fall shoots, I'm probably a third to a half full with my seniors. The sports side of things, just because it's based on fall sports, winter sports, I kind of do the same teams every year. Okay. So there's an expectation there of knowing exactly what teams you're going to do. Certain weeks out of the year, it's the same thing every year, but it's kind of nice because you kind of get into a routine, like what to expect during the year. My seniors shooting, sports, back to seniors, back to sports. So it lays out nicely.
So then what do you do? Because I know that you turn down opportunities, because you are maxed, and you're, and I hope that everybody listening along today that has photography businesses hears what Paul's saying. He knows his limit. You're like, okay, I'm good. This is what I'm going to take. I'm not going to stress myself out. I'm not going to take more time away from my family and my wonderful dog Ranger. You want to go fishing. You're like, it's okay to have boundaries like that and to say this is all I can do. But that also brings up another question of, like, when a school calls you and says, "We saw you did work for here. We'd like to schedule you." How do you handle those conversations when you have to turn down the work?
Yeah, I think when it comes to the sports thing, I just say. That my fall sports schedule is full, and I can't accept any more teams. And I think everybody understands that, because when you're doing posters, banners, photos, that kind of thing, when you shoot them in August, you can't deliver them in November, right? Everything's got to be turned around really quick. So I can only do so many before it would get to be too late. So I block off a few weeks in August, early September to do sports. And there isn't room for more. Yeah. So when it comes to seniors, I could always, if I really wanted to, like I feel like I'm pretty content, right, with my structure and how I organize it all. But I could probably do seniors in the morning and in the evening, and I could maybe not turn down as many seniors, but I have hit that limit where I'm okay. Like I'm content with my process and how many I have, and it fills my schedule. So I could do more seniors, but yeah, I do like to go fishing.
Yeah, darn right,
So
exactly. I mean, to be on the water in a boat, I mean,
Right.
there's no better thing. So Billings is, we were talking this morning, is roughly 200,000. So are you drawing mainly from Billings, or, you know, Montana's big and
Yeah.
spread out. Like, are people driving a long ways? How far are you going for your clientele?
Yeah, sometimes people come from a little ways away. Last summer I had a senior from North Dakota,
Wow.
which is
That's
maybe
pretty
closer
cool.
to you than it was to me.
Depending on where in the state.
Yeah, that's
you
true.
know?
Williston, North Dakota was an 8-hour drive
yeah.
to Billings, so that's as far away as I've ever had a senior. You know, sometimes they're from 4 hours away. Most of the time, obviously, it's closer to home. You know, maybe an hour or two, even from Wyoming. You know, you get some kids from Wyoming that come up
Yep.
to Billings for the senior photos. As far as sports go, it's pretty much all in the city.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I've had people from out of town call and ask, but once again,
Yeah.
you know, can't make it happen. So.
Right, and hard to justify, you know, you having to travel multiple hours, multiple times,
Yeah.
you know, to do that in product delivery and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, like, looking at the images behind, like, I love it out west. And how amazing is that you have all
Yeah.
this in your backyard?
Right.
I mean, why would you want to travel anywhere else?
Try not to take it for granted, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you're very well known in your area, 9 years, almost 10 years in business. Who is driving the bus as far as people choosing you for their senior photographer? Is it the senior? Is it the parents? Like you mentioned, you know, a parent, you know, called you. Like, who do you speak to in your marketing and in your approach?
Well, I always speak to the parents.
Okay.
Okay, I never seek out kids or, you know, DM kids and try to get kids to be,
Yep.
you know, a part of my senior group. So,
Right.
I think it's probably split down the middle, though. I think some kids choose their photographer, and I think some parents do. But being around, you know, all these kids in the schools doing all their sports, you know, you think about how many kids are in football, basketball, volleyball, cross country. I mean, I'm around hundreds of kids
Yeah. all
at
the time.
multiple schools all
and
year.
multiple times.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fall, it's winter, it's spring, and I mean, there's so many. I'm around athletes all the time, so I think that drives my senior business.
Yep.
And a lot of the seniors that I do get are kids that I've photographed for 4 years, all the way through their high school careers. You know, they've been around me, the parents have been around me or know me, and
Yeah.
so yeah, the sports thing definitely helps drive the senior thing a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And it's got to be a really nice comfort level for you and for them. You know, they're walking in the studio or you're meeting them on location. It's not the first time.
Yeah.
You know, you've known them for, you know, 3, 4,
Yeah.
5 years. You know,
Right, a
potentially
lot of them.
before. Yeah. And plus you have that product base, you know, where people have seen your work, they've seen it in print. You know, there's no walls to pass or to get over, you know, without thing to go through.
Sure.
So, quick reminder before we move on here, because this next part I think you're going to find very interesting. If you do have questions for Paul or for me or for anybody in the room, because we have a whole team in here right now, make sure and put them into the chat and we'll go ahead and get that answered live and on the air. So going back to kind of how we began our conversation today, that first whoa. When we had our conversation, I'll let you describe how you structure the business, and then we'll kind of dive into really how that works for you and what challenges that has solved along the way.
Okay. So I think maybe when I started my business, I didn't plan for it to go this way. You know, I didn't say I'm going to have a shooting season, a selling season, but it's just kind of that's what it's morphed into. And I think the busier I got in the fall, it would push senior orders further back into the year to the point where I got so busy, I had to push my senior orders until after the holidays were over. So the last several years, that's just how it's gone. So I think the last 6 months of the year, I shoot really heavy. July, August, September, October are seniors, minus a few weeks in August and September for sports.
Yep.
November, December is winter sports, and it's all that I can do to edit, to shoot, you know, every single day, edit, shoot for those 6 months.
Yep.
And so I just ran into the problem where I didn't have time to do senior orders, and of course I'm by myself. So
Right.
So it just became a thing to wait until after the holidays were over to have kids come back in January, February, March, April, place their orders, do their grad cards, and what else am I going to do in Montana in January? I can't be out shooting. So it did just.
Well, you could, but you'd be frozen.
That's true. I'm not going to go skiing or snowboarding.
Right.
But it just kind of worked into that. And after it did, I like it. I enjoy it. I like seeing my customers come back in a few months later this time of year and placing their orders, and it gives you income for those first few months of the year when it's cold outside and you can't be out shooting. So sometimes I think to myself, what would I be doing this time of year if I hadn't structured it like that? How tight would things be for a few months? But it works.
Yeah. So just so everybody understands here, I mean, Paul has two distinct seasons. You have your photography season and you have your selling season.
Yeah.
And there could be months, or there is months in between when somebody has their session done and when they're placing their order.
Right.
Now, I know, but I'll let you explain it.
Okay.
What makes up that interim? Because I can't imagine there's a high school senior in the world that would be okay with having their photographs taken in August and not seeing them until January, February. So how do you kind of put the Band-Aid on that?
Yeah, that would be rough, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be.
So, they'll come in, we'll watch the video on the TV. I have a booklet with all my products, prices. So I just kind of go over all the products, show them a bunch of things that are hanging on the wall. And then they have a small proof book with everything that's edited in there.
Yep.
And I pretty much give them the proof book and say, see you after the holidays.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people appreciate that because, if I do a multiple session with a kid, if he's an athlete, there could be 80 to 90 photos in their proof book. And so I think parents enjoy, showing it off to people for a few months. And people come in with these proof books and they're sticky noted all over the place, right? And they've got stuff written all over it. And sometimes they take it out of the binding and they lay pictures out all over the place when they come back in. So I feel like it gives people time to figure out what they like. When people come in, they're planned out.
Yeah.
So.
And how much time do you allow for that actual order appointment? Like, is it a half hour, 15 minutes? Like, how long does it take?
I have some parents that can talk for a while. So
Okay.
when you don't see people for a few months, especially if I've known them for years,
Right.
they come in and we'll talk for an hour and we won't even discuss ordering yet. So
Yep.
I usually block a couple of hours just because I don't want someone else to walk in when I'm still in a meeting. So whether or not it takes that long, most of the time not, but there's a few talkers out there.
You don't say. So then during that ordering process, so just to lay it out, so you're doing the session in the summer, fall. You're producing a proof book for them. They're coming in to pick that up. They're watching a slideshow of the images. Are you doing any mock-ups, layouts? Because I know you do a lot of collaging for your senior work.
I do. So I will do some really quick collages for them.
Okay.
I will basically just drag and drop photos into a collage, place them real quick, and I will print them on just a regular LaserJet printer. Okay, nothing fancy. I'll write some notes on it, and I'll give them maybe 3 or 4 different examples, and they take that with them when they leave too.
Okay.
And I've been doing that for several years now, and what that has done was, they come back in with one of those pieces of paper, and they say, this is the one I want.
Yeah.
And then they'll actually write on the picture numbers and how they want it organized. Or maybe they can't decide between 2, and we'll get them off the wall, and we'll go from there. But I think it gives them something to see.
Yeah.
Right, and my sales and collages, increased immediately when I started doing that. So
Right.
Yeah.
So just to kind of put it in perspective, and I'm going to take a little bit of a left turn after this question. What is the number of seniors that you're doing per year? Like, what is your max number?
It's probably about 50.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So
And
you're doing 50 seniors, and then you've got basically equal amount of time, financial, all that stuff in your sports market.
Yeah.
Okay.
For
So
sure.
let's just say, you're safely, let's just say you're doing 100 seniors. Like if somebody watching along is not doing sports, they can maybe think,
Absolutely.
okay, 100 seniors. All
Yeah.
right. And, like my original, thinking about the way that most businesses are structured, if you're going to take 100 senior business and do IPS products, all that stuff, you really can't do that by yourself. I mean, it becomes this potential monumental animal of time that's involved with this and all the appointments and all that kind of stuff, which would require you to have somebody on staff or bringing on a service or doing something like that. And how you're managing this is actually quite brilliant. I'm going to give you credit today. I don't regret the original whoa, but you know it's fun to see how this has progressed over the years. And for everybody watching along, I know that we all here, you know, in-person sales, doing all that is absolutely pivotal. But I will put a star next to that and say, I believe that it's products that are absolutely pivotal to the success of the business. How you choose to sell them is up to you, as long as you're selling them. Mm-hmm. You know, a file-based business just isn't for the long term. It just can't survive. You know, we hear a lot of times where people want to do 6 figures, you know, like that's the number. And, you know, I saw a post from Sean Brown the other day, and he's like, well, think about it. You know, if you're doing, even if you're selling 50 sessions for $1,000 of files, that's still only 50,000. By the time you take all your expenses out, you're not making anything. But if you're taking those 50 sessions and selling product to that, that's a completely different set of circumstances there. So it's not how, it's what, in my opinion, you know, and making sure that you're including the products in that which you are completely vested into. And just kind of a side note, you know, you flew in last night from Montana and picked you up this morning, and you had submitted an album order, and you're currently, as of like yesterday, not selling albums, but this is Paul Ruhter Photography album number one right here. So if you want to kind of show that to the camera real quick. So the albums team here at WHCC actually built this in front of Paul this morning. We had everything all prepped and ready to go, but Paul is going to be going into album sales now, and this, you know, we all know that albums just sell themselves. They're a phenomenal product, but this is the way that you build that product side of the business. And to see you watch this happening, like, what's your feedback on that? Just
to see it finished in person and to hold it and see it, I told you it was stunning, right? That's the word that I used. So it was a great idea to have one made before I got here, but then to see it in person, I didn't expect it to be. I mean, it's pretty cool. So
I'm excited to see how that goes for you.
Me too.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's gorgeous.
I think that they will sell themselves. So since we're talking about products, what are the products that you sell? Like, what are the things you do the most of for your seniors?
Oh, I think by far it's metals.
Okay.
So we're going to see some metals today.
We are
get printed,
see some
so I'm excited about that.
Mm-hmm.
So I sent some in last week, so I'm excited to watch those get printed. But people are really drawn to metals, for sure. And then you know, a lot of image blocks. You know, all my grad cards come through here, and then of course, you know, all the sports stuff. When it comes to the sports stuff, the bag tags. People love those bag tags, and then the metal magnets, those 4x4 metal magnets. Those are cool too.
And buttons, lots of
buttons and magnets, thousands of them. Moms still love their buttons in 2024. Moms still buy their buttons.
And I don't think that will ever change.
I agree.
So going back to your sales cycle here, you know, you mentioned that, you know, you never really intended on it to be structured the way it is. It just kind of happened. Has there been anybody that's been, you know, kind of dug in the heels and be like, well, I don't want to wait that long? Or has it been just the way that you present it, they get to see things, they have that to tide them over, that just kind of like quells that concern?
Yeah, I think maybe just communicating with people early on in the process and saying, hey, here's the schedule, you know, and then after holiday is over is when I start doing ordering. Once in a while you'll have somebody who needs something for Christmas, and of course you're gonna do that. But most of the time people are really sold on that, and you know, it hasn't been any problems, and as long as you communicate that with them right off the bat, then you know, the whole process just goes kind of smoothly. So you said that I've trained people into that, you know, thinking, but yeah, it goes pretty smoothly. And
you know, people following along today might be like, whoa, I can't imagine making that change, but you did it not even really with a conscious decision to do it. You just structured the business that way. You know, and quite honestly, you're the only person that I know that does it that way, but it works for you, you know, and it continues to, and you're you're content. I think you
I was-
used that
yeah,
word
I was gonna say that
earlier,
too.
and that's a powerful word, to be content in your business, because when we go to shows and events and platform speakers, it's always more, bigger, bigger, bigger. Content's a good word.
I've gotten to a point where I'm content, and
Yeah.
it's structured in a way that I take time off with my kids.
Mm-hmm.
We have our family days, boating, and I've learned how to balance that business and that personal life,
Yeah.
and it's hit a stage where everything works, and I'm content with the way it is, even
That's
though
awesome.
I'm the only one that does it. So
Yeah, no, that's fantastic, because work-life balance. I mean, that's a real strong buzz, phrase or
Yeah.
words. Post-COVID, it's hard to do that. Because as photographers and business owners, yes, of course, you would like to make more money, but that also means more time for the most part, and away from family and all that. So it's awesome that you use that word content. So let's talk about how your sports line and your senior line interact as far as like a business driver, because I'm sure it's a circle, but what are you doing with your sports team to drive, or teams to drive that senior business? Are you tucking marketing things in? Are you cherry picking certain kids out of their seniors? Like, how do you do that?
I would never cherry pick. The only thing that I do is tuck in marketing stuff.
Okay.
And of course, I know all the teams pretty well, and
Yep.
if they're a senior, they don't get one, but everyone else gets one. Even if they're freshmen, right? I mean, they need to start thinking about that kind of stuff. So that's about the only marketing that I do. I used to do mailings and all that kind of thing, and that was a lot of work.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And a lot of expense.
Yeah, it took a lot of time to do the mailings. So, and I don't know if it worked or not, but we just stopped doing it, and so that's the only thing that I do for marketing.
Wow.
It sounds like I should do more, but
You know what? High five. If that, and we were talking on the way in this morning, you were describing, your front windows and your commercial space, and you think that that's a driver of the business as well. Can you kind of describe how that looks from the front of your building?
yeah. So it's along the sidewalk. So I think there's probably 5 or 6, 6 or 7 foot long skinny windows going down, and I have 6-foot banners hanging up from the ceiling, and they're no sports. It's all senior stuff. And then there's some lights on the floor pointing up at the banner, so they're on timers, and at night they shine up in those windows. Unless I get there late at night and bulbs are burned out, and I'm running in there changing light bulbs once in a while. But it's a lot of windows to clean. I also don't have somebody clean my windows, but that shouldn't surprise you, because add that to my list of things that I do.
Yeah.
I hate cleaning windows.
It's the owner's responsibility. So when we were talking leading up to this, Paul, you indicated, let's just, for nice round numbers, say you've been in business for 10 years. But the last 5 years have really blown up, especially on the sports side of things. What do you attribute that to? Like, what has been the driver of that tremendous growth on the sports side for you?
I think it's probably, obviously, the quality of the posters, banners. When you go to a restaurant, and I just walked into a restaurant last weekend, and you walk in, and one of my posters is hanging up on the wall.
Yeah.
Or you go in the high schools, and there's 20 or 30 banners hanging up in the in the gyms, and your logos on them. I think people see that, and other teams see that, and I think it just kind of spread,
Yeah.
right? And so if one team at a school saw that their volleyball poster was great, then the basketball team wants something great, and so it was, I think, just word of mouth kind of thing, right? It just kind of evolved pretty quickly. To the point where I've got a lot of sports teams.
Yeah, that's great. So it really has been the product, the graphic design, the photography that has really drove that growth in the last 5 years, you feel?
Yeah, it for sure has. And so when I go to these sports shoots, I do a lot of different projects in one shoot, right? Like I've told you, I've maximized myself per photo shoot, which I've learned to do over the years.
Yep.
So it's photo orders, right, that parents are buying. And then we're doing separate photos on a backdrop for their team poster, and then we're doing separate photos for their player banners. And so if you can get all of that into one photo shoot, that's a really good day. And the next day you go to a different school, different team, do the same thing, and give 110%. It doesn't matter the school or the the sport. You just do it every day. It takes some stamina.
I was just going to ask you, like, that has to be exhausting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someday it'll probably catch up to me.
Well, you're only, 24? We
Right,
established
yeah,
that
something like
before?
that.
Yeah, so that's good. So when you are at a school, like, are you there for 4 hours, 2 hours?
If I do a boys basketball team and a girls basketball team, so there's probably 80 boys, 80 girls, right? It's a 4-hour shoot.
Okay.
So if it's one team, I usually say 2 hours, and that's to do, the regular individual photos for orders, the backdrop stuff for posters, banners,
Yep.
Team picture, all that kind of stuff. So,
Yep.
But I can get in a gym and get moving.
Yeah, and you're doing all of those orders like they're pre-ordering from you,
Yep.
or okay?
Yep. So they order all that kind of stuff, and I can sit down and order all that stuff through White House really quickly. Get design my own memory mates, that kind of thing, and
Yep.
They're here so fast.
Yeah.
I'm delivering that stuff sometimes 8 to 10 days after the photo shoot, and people are like, "Wow, that was fast."
Yeah, that's awesome.
So-
and one of the questions you asked me when we were planning, you're like, "Do I get to see the sports area?
Yeah,
I really
right.
want to spend some
Yep.
time in the sports
We got to
area."
go check out the button maker.
Exactly. We may put you to work
I would
making
love to make a
buttons
button.
today. Yeah. Mark that.
I had
down,
a
Christina.
parent once that thought I had a button maker in the back of my studio.
Okay.
Can I just order a button? I'm like, well, I can't really order one. And she's like, you just go back there and stamp a button. I'm like, I don't have a button
Yeah,
maker.
that's not how this works. Now, you did mention some of your favorite products earlier, but let's kind of rehash that a little bit. So you're doing the sports posters. Are you selling those, or is that something that you're donating back to kind of get the marketing value out of them? Or
No,
how do you do
they're
that?
definitely, the schools buy them. So, where I'm from, all of the sports teams do a lot of fundraising. Okay, a lot of businesses donate for their travel and their meals and all that kind of stuff. So
Yep.
part of their fundraising goes to their team poster. So
Okay.
when I design those team posters, probably the biggest headache in the design part of it is putting all those sponsor logos at the bottom of the
and
poster.
not missing one.
Not missing one. I have spreadsheets, and I'm OCD, so I have different colors of highlighters to make sure I don't miss anything. But and some people don't have logos, and some of them are just a business card. And why don't you have a logo? And so the logos are hard, but you get those on there, and that's how it pays for the posters. Okay. Banners are the same way.
Okay.
Most of the fundraising pays for banners and posters.
Got it.
So
And the banners are of the team or individuals?
they're individual.
Individual,
Yep. So they're
okay.
vinyl banners, and they're in baseball stadiums, they're in gyms. This weekend at the big arena in Billings is state wrestling.
Okay.
So I'll have maybe 100 banners hanging
Oh,
up
wow.
this
Cool.
weekend inside the arena. So
everywhere that people look, they're seeing Paul Ruhter Photography.
there's a lot of sports stuff around.
that's awesome.
It's hanging up all over town.
Yeah, it's really cool that, and I come from a small town, and Billings is a lot larger than where I came from, but that closeness that you have with the community through
Yeah.
all this and support and trust and everything. I mean, for somebody that can max out their schedule and be content, I still love that word, and not have to invest thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars and hours into marketing, that's fantastic.
Right.
That speaks volumes about you.
Right. And I love the relationships too, right? Like I go into these schools, and I've known the athletic director for 10 or 15 years, and you go to a different school, and I know the activities lady for 15 years, and
Yeah.
those kinds of things are awesome. Where you walk into a high school, and there's 2,000 kids there, but people walk through the hall, and they're like, "Hey, Paul, there's a lot of athletes in high school, and they'll recognize you after a while." So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
cool stuff.
Yeah, that's very cool. So moving into the technique side of these things, because you're not flat lighting these seniors and these athletes. Like, there's very specific ways you need to light a female athlete or a male athlete to really get that effect. And I think that we're going to run a slideshow of some of your images here, talking about like how you light and some behind the scenes stuff. Fill us in a little bit on how you're doing this and how that has helped to drive some of this growth.
Well, I think it stands out, right, when I'm shooting in a locker room. If you don't know how to light something properly inside of a crappy space like a locker room, then it's not going to work. So I love shooting in gyms. I love shooting in locker rooms, and it all it's got to look pretty dramatic, right? If you're an athlete.
Yeah.
So I typically make athletes look dramatic in their photos. There's no question about it. So I do a lot of backlighting, a lot of side lighting.
Yeah.
And yeah, I carry a ton of stuff with me, right? For all there's parent jumping. So obviously heavy on strip boxes on the sides.
Lots of smoke.
Lots of smoke bombs and backlighting behind her so it illuminates the smoke, and throwing light in the front. So, as a photographer.
And this is in a gym? Or is this
Actually, it's a long story. It's actually in a storage unit.
Oh, really? Well, whatever works.
We had to open the door after each smoke bomb,
the
and
smoke
let it
out.
air out. But as a photographer, I mean, what more do you want out of a senior shoot? Like, how cool
Right.
is that?
Yeah.
Right? Like, that was a great experience. That was one of my first senior shoots of the year last year, and I got it kicked off with that. And yeah, how fun is that?
That's awesome. And that's also, not to just completely focus on sports, that goes into all your portrait work too. So, we can see the images behind us. You really have a signature style with the sun and, and your lighting. How did that come to be?
I think it came to be because when I was in journalism, I was obsessed with silhouettes. I became known as the silhouette guy. So if you're at a rodeo, right, it's going to be a silhouette of a cowboy on a rail, or I was always shooting the silhouettes.
Okay.
It's just something, I had something for the sun. So when I started doing portrait work, I just got into this thing of always having the sun, whether it's behind somebody or where it's off to the side, or if someone is holding up a rifle and it's coming in between their arm, like I constantly put it in places, and it's not an accident. So in order to do that, of course, you need to match the sun with your strobe lighting. So I carry something around with me, and at the end of the day, my back hurts and I'm tired, and kids are dragging me up the side of a mountain and back down again. But that's I expose for the sun so that you get those dark colors in the sun, and we have a lot of sunshine where I'm at, and so expose for the sun and light it from the front, and that's my style.
Now, are you choosing all these spots, Paul, or do your clients have input on that?
A little bit of both. I usually try to push people in the spring that they need to start thinking about their locations, and if people are at a loss and they don't know where to go, then of course I have hundreds of places in my mind. But a lot of people come to me and say, I know somebody that has a property, or we own property, or I know somebody that knows somebody that owns a property on a river. I'm on private places all the time, and
that's cool.
Seen some really great spots.
And not getting escorted off.
Yes, and never going back there again because it was private. It's like a one-time thing.
Yeah, exactly. So. And I'm sure that the color and the depth and saturation that you're getting on your metal products just looks phenomenal.
Yeah, I've got some beautiful metals hanging up in my studio. That's probably why a lot of people order metals too, right? Like I show it to them, and I'm like, look at the colors popping on this thing. So we'll go see a couple of those today.
Yeah, totally. So all of these are all environmental behind us. Do you shoot in your studio, or do you just use that as production and like sales space?
The only things I shoot in my studio, I'll get a lot of headshots that I'll do. Once in a while, I get some athletes that will prefer to do studio photos instead of going on location in a gym or something. Okay. And those are fun, right? Other than that, there isn't really a trend where I'm at to do studio photos for seniors.
Well, and that that
maybe that's why, right?
Well, and that really comes back to you managing your time so well too, because if somebody says, "Oh, I want to go do this," you can be like, "Oh, that sounds great."
Yeah.
If you had 4 shoots in a day, you wouldn't have that type of flexibility. And as an artist, myself, you have to have that. You have to have that time, to enjoy getting to know people in new spaces and all that.
For sure. And, why would I shoot at noon when I can shoot, everything's done in the evenings.
Yep.
So I live for those moments too, right? Like those are photo shoots that I want. I mean, I wait for golden hour all year, so.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And what do you consider golden hour? Because I know that's a conversation to get into with a bunch of photographers. Like, what do you feel is your golden hour?
In the summer, it's late, right? So sometimes it's pushing 9 o'clock.
Okay.
But when it starts going down, it goes down fast.
It does.
So
there's no time to spare.
Sometimes we'll sit there and we'll wait, and then when it starts dropping, you're like, you've got 3, 4, 5 minutes before it drops all the way down, and you can keep shooting after it's all the way down. Yep. But there's only a few minutes before it drops below the horizon. But you got to have your exposure ready, and you got to have a plan ready. And there's plenty of times where, it's quick, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Now, are you also incorporating any family portraits into your seniors, or do you not go into that realm?
I don't. If people ask if siblings can jump in or boyfriends can jump in, I'm like, yeah, sure, let's do it.
Okay. That's the surest way to get a boyfriend to go away, is to include them in.
There you go. but honestly, I used to do families, and then 5, 6 years ago, I had to stop because I was constantly turning families down because I was so full of seniors, and I would prefer to do seniors over families. Yeah. So I did end up just cutting it completely out and filling my schedule with seniors instead, and So I took all my family pictures off my website,
Yep.
so.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, that means that you have been effective at communicating that with your clients.
Yeah,
I do this,
nobody calls anymore for
and I
family
do
photos.
this. Yeah, yeah. And again, and me included, probably in that very first conversation or one shortly thereafter, I probably was like, we need to do families, Paul. And you
Right.
probably were like, no, man.
You said, whoa, Paul.
Right, yeah, exactly. But again, and I don't want to get super philosophical here, but I have this, and I'm going to underline it. You are really good at managing and understanding your limits. I don't want anybody listening along and you to take that lightly, because that's hard. Even here at White House, we all do a lot of different things, and sometimes it's hard to be like, no, I can't take that. Mm-hmm. How do you do that?
I think it's a choice.
Okay.
I choose, this might sound really bad, but I take off every Thursday in the summer. And
that's terrible.
I know, but I could schedule more, right? But I've chosen that those Thursdays are family times. Mm-hmm. So, I'm content knowing that I'm losing out even this time of year based on that decision. But I made that choice to make memories with my kids. Yep. And summer's so short where I live. Yeah. I mean, you get 2.5 months, and so, yeah, Thursdays are my family day.
Yeah. That's awesome, and I commend you for it. So for people who are watching along, where do they find you, online? What's your website, Instagram, that kind of stuff, in case they want to follow along?
Yeah, it's pretty easy. The website's paulruhter.com, and then Instagram is at Paul Ruhter Photography.
So Christina just put a note on the board here. So she says happy versus content. And that's awesome. Having that happiness and being able to smile and enjoy, and being excited to get out of bed to go to work in the morning. Yeah. We all need that, no matter what we do. So I commend you on that. So here, paulruhterphotography.com, and it's Paul Ruhter Photography on Instagram.
Yep.
Anywhere else you're hiding out there on
it's on Facebook.
Okay.
If you're over the age of 30, I hear.
I see we've got another note here coming up here. Christian Ruhter says yay boy. So who is Christian?
That's my son.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
figured. He should be in school right about now. So yeah, he's on YouTube.
Oh, get to school, Christian.
Get to school.
All right. So for any of you that are going to be watching this on the rewind, make sure and put any questions that you have into the chat, and we'll definitely get Paul to answer them. We really have enjoyed having everybody join us today. Thank you so much for sharing with us and coming to hang out. We have a lot packed in for you this afternoon.
It's going to be a great day.
Yeah, it already has been a great day. Mm-hmm. Yep. So it's lunchtime, and then it's sports time, and then it's medal time, and then dinner, and all the fun things that we have planned for you. So thank you for joining us. Make sure hit subscribe on the WHCC YouTube so you get notified of all the cool stuff coming up. Follow along on Instagram at WHCC Pro, and for all of your product details, make sure and check out WHCC.com. And Christian also added he's in for lunch.
He's having a long lunch
he's
today,
on lunch,
apparently.
Yeah, apparently. All right, thanks for joining us. We'll see you at the next one.